Would you believe me if I told you that I was turning 30 next month? It feels crazy to me too. Let me give you a quick summary of how my 20s went. In high school, I was an average skinny Asian kid who really only enjoyed playing video games and being active once in a while. I got pretty good grades and proceeded to go to a state university. I had this belief that I could cruise through college, get a job, find a girlfriend, and then everything else would fall into place. But little did I know that I would get sucker punched over and over as I got reality check after reality check. I placed a lot of my self-worth into what I was accomplishing, and for most of my 20s, I really had nothing going for myself. But over the years, I slowly but surely made my way through those dark times. And the most important thing that I got out of my 20s is that I figured out who I am and what I want to do for the rest of my life. I overcame most of the hardships that I felt as a guy who felt shameful and worthless. And now I have a lot that I can look back on. I'll be covering the key lessons that I learned in my 20s that if I knew them back then, I would have experienced way more success in much less time and way less stress. While it took me these last 10 years to acquire all of this wisdom, I will be imparting it to you, the viewer, and to my future children, who I hope can bypass a lot of the difficulty that I experienced. The first lesson is practicing making better decisions. This lesson comes first because life is nothing but a series of problems, and your life will depend on the way that you approach answering the many questions in a day. Every decision you make matters and sets the tone for your life as they build upon each other. And the biggest issue with being young is lacking perspective and experience. You see, I was very closed-minded in my early 20s. I only dealt with the issues that were right in front of me and never really put thought into building for the future. My decision-making slowly evolved to be more open-minded, and I started making more conscious efforts to be more proactive and mindful of my choices. The way that I think and act at age 29 compared to 20 is drastically different, and I'd say it's mostly for the better. There's a lot of days between 20 and 30, and during that time span, you're going to maximize the amount of good decisions you make and minimize both the number and risk of bad ones. By practicing making better decisions, you can set good habits early, and you can get more done in a day when you have better mood and more energy, which can then create momentum in increasing your quality of life. You can also prevent unwanted consequences from needlessly endangering yourself. This all starts with what you do when you first wake up, and then expands to what foods you eat, what you do in your spare time, how you handle conflict, etc. Obviously, it's impossible to have every single day go well, but a lot of them are going to hinge on whether or not you stick to your good habits, not to mention that bad habits can and will catch up to you. And this leans heavily into the next lesson: preserve your body. This is $1 million lesson right here, because anyone who's a bit older now will tell you that keeping up good health as long as possible is priceless. Your body will go for a good amount of development in your 20s, but it can also break down through bad habits, with some debuffs being worse than others. Let me go for a quick laundry list of just how messed up my body is right now. I have nearsightedness from looking at screens too much, hearing loss from stuffing my ears with earbuds and blasting loud music into it on the regular, slightly yellow teeth from not brushing often as a kid that are also moving out of alignment because I didn't wear my retainers after braces. I have sore wrists, elbows, hips, knees, ankles, and I just developed digestive issues, and most notably, the back injury, which I suffered about 3 years ago, which is still ongoing. Our bodies have built-in functions to deal with all types of stress, but there's a lot of choices that we make that can overload that functioning and cause health problems. And like I said earlier, bad habits can cause stress over time, which can then lead to catastrophic damage, such as organ failure and injuries, which put you in the hospital. So there are 3 ways you can maintain a healthy body: prevention, maintenance, and treatment. We can implement habits to prevent potential damage, like wearing light-blocking glasses and sunglasses to reduce eye strain, using more comfortable earbuds, and wearing earplugs in loud places, refusing to do things with high bodily risk, such as motorcycle riding or cliff jumping, and not picking up habits such as cigarette smoking and binge drinking because of the long-term health effects. For body maintenance, I incorporate supportive bracing, ergonomic equipment, and supplements to regulate how my body and joints feel. I routinely try to keep a straight posture, alternate standing and sitting often, stretch out sore areas, strengthen my joints, and make better food decisions, because I know that if I let stress build up from bad habits, the eventual damage will too. And for treatment, you want to make sure that you properly diagnose medical issues and injuries right away. I broke this pinky finger back in high school, and I had to have surgery on it because I let it heal wrong for weeks before going to see a doctor. That completely changed my mindset on seeking medical help, and now I'm much more quick to react when something's wrong with my body. Most notably, physical therapy, when my joints aren't working right. And when you are working your way back from something, let your body heal completely. and don't rush the recovery process. If I knew this lesson, I obviously wouldn't have messed my back up, but there are plenty of other bodily defects that I now either have to invest thousands into correcting or live with permanently. I'm telling you, don't wait for your body to break down before you decide to start taking care of it, because it's easy to take good health for granted until you lose it. Our bodies will age and deteriorate over time, but with proper maintenance, you can keep it healthy and strong longer than most people. The third lesson is to take your time. You have a lot of decisions that you'll make over the course of your 20s, and you may find yourself in precarious situations where if you make the wrong choices, your life can be over before it really begins. This can stem from simple decisions like putting on your seatbelt, looking both ways before crossing the street, waiting just a bit longer to turn into an intersection, watching your step, and using condoms. And people make dumb decisions all the time, but there's a difference between making a dumb decision here or there and needlessly endangering yourself. Because sometimes it just takes 1 second or one lapse of judgment. One moment I'm driving tired, and the next thing you know, I just got T-boned. I get too excited with a potential date and send them a risky text that actually pushes them away. I push myself to do one more rep of something that I shouldn't, and I lose years of good health from it. I start thinking with my little head in the heat of the moment, and then I'm dealing with a pregnancy scare. And I almost got a DUI once, but I was lucky that I only drank one drink that night and sobered up for an hour or so before driving. When I look back on it, the main reason why I made most of the worst decisions of my 20s was because I rushed them. I didn't give myself the time to think or breathe and defaulted to addressing the situation without assessing it. Or maybe I did too much overthinking and went away from the obvious course of action. More often than not, when we have a bad feeling in our gut about something, it's usually right. Like, bruh, I could have died from some of my stupid decisions. I could have suffered years of torment over seconds of pleasure, and no amount of money ever bought a second of time. It pays to pay attention and put your safety and sanity over cheap thrills. Lesson number 4. Experiment with everything. No one at the age of 20 has their whole life figured out for them, but you will have a lot of spare time and energy and should let your curiosity get the best of you. I say you should go try things out and discover what you could potentially be good at or what you'll definitely never try again. I've explored many different avenues for myself out of curiosity. Just to name a few, I've gone into longboarding, self-photography, cooking, baking, DIY home projects, car modding, and day trading. I've lived in a few different cities by myself, and I've explored them thoroughly to find my favorite spots to eat, drink, shop, walk around, and have fun at. I got into copywriting and digital marketing and started doing my own online coaching business. I've dipped my toes into some degeneracy, and if there was no harm in foul in trying something, I tried it. I can't tell you the number of times that I've judged people for doing something and then got pleasantly surprised when I tried it for myself. This lesson also applies to life experiences. You should go out and expand your horizons. Look for opportunities to travel to new cities and countries. Make room to try to finer things in life and go live a little. We all have one life to live, and I'd want to experience as much as I possibly can. By expanding my range as a person, I've become sort of a jack of all trades. I'm a self-sufficient person that can be relied upon to do things for myself and others, and I have a wide range of topics that I can have interesting conversations on. I know what I'm good at and what I'm not, and I can say that I've definitely lived a somewhat interesting life so far. And the thing about experimenting with everything is that once you know what you're good at or want to become better at, then you want to pursue them wholeheartedly. So that leads into lesson number 5. Pursue passions and problems. I'm sure that most people would want to live off doing what they love, but you have to dedicate time and energy to make it happen. And the sooner you try, the sooner you can either build it up and capitalize on your success or move on to the next venture. If we go into how I made my major breakthroughs, it was because I tackled my problems head on. I trained hard to become stronger and more muscular. I was constantly implementing new photos and strategies to evaluate my worth in the dating market. I patched up my resume and grinded through interviews to start making a living, and then dipped my toes into different avenues of income. Sure, there were days where I couldn't make any progress or I had to pick myself up after taking an L, but I always knew what I wanted to accomplish, and once I did, it would relieve all of the stress that followed, and then I could move on to better problems. The biggest regret that I have with anything that I devote significant effort into is, why didn't I start this sooner? If I had put in the same level of effort into some of my aspirations at some point in the past, I'm 100% sure I would have accomplished much more in less time. Like, making content isn't entirely new to me. I've made cringy videos as a teenager, but never really explored YouTube as a venture until a few years ago. So if you're still in your 20s and there's something in your mind that you've been dying to try, I'd say just do it. In the wise words of Wiz Khalifa, I never fear death or dying. I only fear never trying. And so that leads to lesson number 6. Get humbled. Part of the experience of putting yourself out there and trying new ventures is that you're not going to be good at them right away. And that fear is what keeps a lot of people from even trying. But that's the wrong mindset to have. You need to start from the bottom to get to the top. That's why I live by the phrase confidence through competence. Because I can never feel confident about how I do something unless I truly know what the hell I'm doing. And it all starts with having the courage to take the leap and get humbled over and over. I don't know where I'm lacking until I get flattened for not being good enough. This lesson doesn't just apply to skills, it also applies to your career. I recognized how tough the job market would be during my last year of college, and I tried to supplement it with what I could, but it wasn't enough. And at some point, I had to decide whether to keep shooting for an ideal job or put my ego aside and pick up some less than desirable work experience. And so I decided to humble myself and start doing something instead of nothing. My first job as a college graduate was a ride operator at a local amusement park, making $13 an hour. I used that money to lease a car and become an Uber and Lyft driver. My next job? Construction laborer. I was literally shoveling dirt and picking up trash for $15 an hour. I had kept myself busy like this until I finally landed my first real job as a data analyst, 2 years after graduating college. By not putting it beneath myself to do less than what I believe I deserved, I gained some valuable work experience and money to keep myself afloat. I was able to develop a mindset of accepting hard work at the bottom, and that stayed with me as I got better opportunities in life. Lesson 7. Seek sustainability. As you go through your early 20s, you're going to have to constantly adjust your routine and schedule to meet deadlines, while still making room to spend time and money on things that you want. And the key point here is that ultimately, you want to build a framework to live the life that you want without feeling like you have to constantly sacrifice for it. Managing your finances is key to lifestyle advancement, and more importantly, peace of mind. I lived a frugal lifestyle while I was still in college and for the first years after it. My expenses were very low because my parents weren't making me pay rent and I was driving the family car. But once I saved up a good amount of money, I started using it to upgrade my lifestyle. I moved out and started paying rent, filled out my wardrobe, and went crazy on Amazon to supplement every little need that I had. But the most pivotal financial decisions that I made were regarding cars. The decision to lease a car was made impulsively, and I basically paid $9,000 plus insurance over 3 years to own nothing. After the lease was done, I had a choice to buy the family car for $3,000, but instead, I impulsively bought a Dodge Challenger, my dream car at the time, and then upgraded to a Ford Mustang when I moved to Las Vegas. Looking back at it, I would have definitely made a lot of different decisions. I would have saved a crap load of money and instead committed to spending more than 10 times the amount financing these vehicles instead of outright buying the family car. While I can afford the life that I live and buy into many fulfilling experiences, I always felt uncomfortable with how much I was spending compared to how much I had. And I have to face that hard truth, knowing that it's currently unsustainable for me to keep doing those things. So there's 2 points to derive from this lesson. First, you want to think about making more future-based decisions, and that all stems from our habits. Can you set up your life in a way where you can live the same way day after day and still get what you want? This is where all of my current efforts are going towards. I want to live not for moments, but for the ability to create moments whenever I want. And that desire comes from having sustainability in all aspects of my life. But you also don't have to be afraid of pinching pennies on every single purchase. There are plenty of things that you shouldn't be afraid to spend more on because they're well worth it, and you can save time, money, and energy maintaining them. This mainly applies to things that connect you to the ground, such as beds, tables, chairs, shoes, and tires. Investing in comfort is worth it because you can reduce a lot of bodily stress from inferior goods. Trading your safety and sanity for a few bucks is never worth it. So keep that in mind when shopping around. Lesson 8. Assert yourself socially. I was socially avoidant as a teenager and young adult. I didn't like talking to people who weren't my friends. I kept my hand down in class all the time, and I could only talk about my interests without being weird or quirky. So once I went to college, it became very apparent that I didn't know how to interact with others like a normal person. I joined a business fraternity to work on it, but ended up feeling socially ostracized as I couldn't relate to any of the members there. And what really cemented my social incompetence was when I started going on dates from dating apps and had nothing but bland conversations and blowouts. So I knew that I really needed to work on my social skills. I had to learn how to be concise and coherent when talking, how to imbue confidence in my speech, and how to generate conversation no matter who I'm talking to. I also had to humble myself and learn how to ask for help when I needed it. And the result of having better social skills is significant because it opens up so many opportunities. Not only am I confident to approach strangers if I need something, but I can also be friendly enough to possibly befriend them. I can get through most interviews with minimal issues, and I can express myself with the tone and message that I want. I can also show confidence and authority when I talk about my skills and experience. People in general like talking to and being talked to by others that can communicate well, and this has allowed me to build connections with people that I relate to, even over the internet. This all leads to the next lesson. Let your relationships flow. The truth about having friends and relationships with people is that a lot of them won't last. Most of the guys that I considered close friends of mine growing up faded out of my life during my 20s. It just took time to show that they were not as close to me as I thought of them, and I just had to accept that. I also had to accept that not everyone who's been friendly with me can be my friend. It is what it is. But as you make friends, you get to discover what type of friend you are. I like to incorporate people into my life and constantly mix friend groups together. But one of my biggest weaknesses as a friend in my early 20s was that I tried to impose myself too much into their lives. I thought that getting my friends involved with big events like birthday parties and hangouts meant that they would do the same for me. But it didn't. And I actually pushed away a good few friends because of that. I also learned that some relationships are fragile and can end over the most trivial of matters. Does that make them bad people? No. But if these friends can't overlook or communicate when there's an issue, then I'm fine with them leaving my life. But I also learned that if I wanted to maintain strong relationships, then that means I have to compromise and let a lot of things go. I'm someone who now prioritizes making peace over being right. I choose to forgive and forget instead of killing relationships as long as things weren't malicious. I don't want to be someone who holds relationships to a standard of equality, but rather equity, because I will go out on a limb for someone that is willing to do the same for me. That also means reconciling rocky relationships that need to be well. For me, this is mainly my parents. We clashed quite a bit over restrictions when I was a teenager, and some more when I was trying to make my own decisions after college. I saw them as obstacles and outlets to unleash my anger at, and our relationship strained as we kept fighting over my desire to become independent. And once I made my decisions, they had to accept it. But they still provided me some support by helping me move in and out of my spots. They pulled back and let me live my life independently, and having that space allowed us to slowly rebuild our relationship. So now, even though I have less friends than before, I am on good terms with most of the people that come and go through my life. I understand that everyone has their own lives to live, and I know who my friends are and who I can go to for help. I can see that relationships have an ebb and flow to them, and that as long as I don't disconnect from anyone that I've interacted with before, I can make myself available for people who are willing to do the same, even if we haven't spoken for a long time. And as bad as social media is, one huge benefit that comes from it is allowing us to remain loosely connected to anyone we've interacted with. So as long as there's no bad blood, you don't need to unfollow every single person from Facebook and Instagram that you rarely see, because you never know when a conversation or opportunity can resurface from having that lifeline. Lesson 10. Become indifferent. When I was in my early 20s, I didn't care what people thought of me because I was ignorant, but that proved to be detrimental when I was shown time and time again that I couldn't bother enough to fit in. But now at age 29, I don't care what people think because I know where I stand in all aspects. The truth is that no matter who you are, people are going to hate on you for no reason at all. They will hate on you for just existing, for speaking out on certain points, and for making effort towards anything in life. And if people simply accepted all of this negativity, nobody would get anything done. So I have accepted that there will be resistance no matter what I put my mind to, and that it's up to me to push through it all. I've been playing online games since the early 2000s, so I'm used to hearing and dishing out bullcrap. But there are plenty of people who will push things too far if you let them. You just have to learn how to tune out all the noise by blocking, muting, hiding, and ignoring anything that isn't constructive criticism. That's how you build thick skin. A crucial point about becoming indifferent is learning what to focus your energy on. At the end of the day, I'm just one guy on Earth, and there's only so much that I can dedicate my time and energy to. I have to take care of myself before I can even think about doing that for anyone else. But it's not my place to concern myself over what other people are thinking or doing with their lives. I simply don't have the time or energy for that. Lesson 11. Find your own solace. Your 20s are going to be the years where you're looking to establish yourself in every way. And for most of us, it's going to be a rough journey. There's going to be a lot of mental battles when we're not where we want to be, and there's going to be days where we don't want to be strong. So during this time, you're going to want to learn how to become comfortable with yourself and how to manage your stress. Because the last thing you want happening when you're at a low point is something else that compounds it. So when I was going through my darkest days, I did my best to try to keep things to myself. When bad things happened to me, my default reaction was always anger because I would be mad at myself for having made the wrong choices and not preventing the consequences. There were many moments where I just wanted to scream and smash things around me, but I had to control myself and find other outlets where I wasn't hurting anyone or anything to calm down. So when I was feeling stressed, I played a crap ton of video games just to pass time. Then it turned into late night drives, smoking weed, and downing sleeping pills and alcohol to depress myself to sleep. I had to learn how to live with myself and still choose to care about my well-being, even when things weren't going great. I had to draw a line for how I coped with stress and not devolve to negative self-talk and self-harm. And so as I carried along, I found myself getting much more comfortable going out by myself. I was solo boloing and eating alone, spending hours at libraries spamming out job applications, and checking out new spots just to kill time. I'm not afraid to do things on my own, and it felt a lot better when I was able to go to these same places with friends later on. Lesson 12. Success solves everything. Every goal that we have in life grants us fulfillment when we make breakthroughs or succeed. If you list out every single thing that was causing you stress right now, and then somehow got exactly what you wanted, you would be able to pretty much eliminate all of it. That's why every single aspiration I went after had a measurable goal. Because once I reached that point, I would feel a huge moment of relief, knowing that what I had put in was worth it. The burden of looking for a job ended when I got offered a position. The pain and anguish of feeling worthless ended when I finally got laid. Like I said at the very beginning, life is nothing but a series of problems. And as we work to get better at solving problems, we get to discover more about the world and ourselves. You develop resilience through facing adversity. You build character by becoming a better person. You gain more perspective by seeing different approaches and opinions to your issues. And you only have one life to live, so why wouldn't you want to make the most out of it? I placed a lot of my self-worth into what I was doing compared to what I wanted to achieve. And it made sense that I didn't feel adequate when I wasn't getting anything done. But I was also self-aware enough to say that when I wasn't doing well, I don't want pity or copium. I want solutions. I don't want people telling me I'm doing fine when I'm not. I want people who knew what they were doing to tell me how to win. But more importantly, I had to choose to keep pushing no matter what. I had to constantly forgive myself for all of my failures and regrets so I could keep moving on. And having that mentality is what finally allowed me to push through all of that bullcrap until I finally achieved what I wanted. Because most of the issues that I pursued were problem-based, and once I solved them, I could finally move on to better and smaller issues. The final lesson is to memorialize your life. Your 20s are going to be all over the place. They'll be wild, turbulent, traumatic, stressful, but at the end of it all, they'll be memorable. And thanks to modern technology, it just takes the press of a button to memorialize those moments. When I look back on who I was and what I went through in my 20s, I can't help but feel nostalgic over how life was 10 years ago. It's funny to see how cringe I was doing random things I don't remember doing, and to look back at my journey through different aspects like dating and fitness. I'm able to reminisce on what I was doing to become a better person, and where my progress was during different years. And I'm able to look back fondly at my worst moments, knowing that I overcame them. I am constantly referring back to pictures and documents that I made in the past because they help move things forward today. You never know when something you worked on years ago can become relevant again for a current project. So save your documents. Take more pictures and videos of everything. There's more to life than just grinding every day. And one day, you would want to be at a point where you can look back at the things that you've done and be able to show yourself and others that you lived life a little. And now let's close things off by going back to the beginning. When I was 20 years old, I was socially avoidant, ignorant, naive, and clueless about how the world worked and how I would fare within it. I believed that I was good enough as I was and I could cruise my way to becoming a well-rounded person. But that was far from the truth. It hurt at first, but gradually, I learned to face it and address my weaknesses head on. I had to become a better person in every way imaginable. And throughout my journey, I got to experience more of the world and discover my capabilities and character. My 20s were all about self-discovery, character building, and becoming more open-minded. And thanks to all of those strides I made, I became the very person that I needed all of those years ago. I've come so far, did so much, and now the only thing left for me to really do is utilize what I've learned to make a living for myself. And this is where the chapter ends. So that's it for this video. If you're still here, I appreciate you as always, and you should like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment if you found this helpful, and join the Basecamp Discord, and links below for coaching and questions. That's all for now. Stay based, and I'll see y'all when I'm 30. Bye-bye.